Hello. I realized the other day that it's been some time since I've done a sketchbook walkthrough. I believe it was a full year ago since last I did so. And so I'd like to do a little flip through today and show you what has been going on behind the scenes of creating paintings like you see here, which are from my Verdance Tarot. So first of all, I like to use these Fabriano Eco Qua original sketchbooks. I like them because they're super lightweight, but the paper is thick enough that it doesn't show my sketches through the back side, so I can use all the pages fully. And they come in different sizes. I like this size for carrying around with me, but this size can be also useful for doing larger, more detailed sketches or for working out problems and things in a more well laid out format. For my sketching, I generally prefer to use a lead holder with a 3mm lead and sometimes my 0.5 mechanical pencil. I don't generally use my 0.2 mechanical pencil or the 0.3, which is what I use when I am doing the final stages of sketching before painting onto my watercolor paper. And of course, erasers. Let's look in some of these sketchbooks now. Before I started on any of these sketches, I had a spreadsheet where I worked out all the details and the symbols and the structure for the minor arcana of the Verdance Tarot. And once I had this worked out, then I started to use that, referring to it as I began sketching. I started going through the minor arcana sketches by going in order from the aces, but rather than doing ace of swords, then two of swords, three of swords, so on, I instead decided to move laterally. So I would work on all the aces for all four of the suits. So there's the ace of wands here, the ace of swords. I had two alternate sketches initially because I wasn't quite sure which way I wanted to go. Did I want to actually have the bird in here, or if I wanted to keep it free of any focal point creatures? And what I settled on was I really wanted to have trees actually be the focal point of my aces. So each of the aces features a tree in the upper third of the piece. You can see it's divided over here. Here's the tree in the upper half, here's the sword, and here's a nest with an egg in it. Over here's the pentacles, where my pentacles are actually hexagons because I decided to go with bee and honey theme with this. And I have an olive tree in the upper third of the piece. The lower third is underground, which is the case for all four of the aces, where the lower 2/3 of the pieces is underground and the upper third is a tree. For the ace of wands, I wanted that fire connection and how pine cones need fire to really trigger their growth cycle. And so this is a redwood tree with the pine cones down below, and here's the wands. And we have got here the ace of cups. Again, similar thing. So I had a mangrove tree in the upper third with the cup and the underwater aspect over here rather than underground as it is for the other aces. And you can see I take very, very scribbled notes throughout here. I don't know if you can read my handwriting there, but these are notes just for myself to remember some of the symbols and the ideas as I'm going, because I forget about them if I wait too long. And because I went through all the sketches in one large session of about a week and a half before even setting paint to paper and starting on the paintings. This was all stuff that I needed to take notes on to make sure I knew what I wanted to do. So for the Two of Pentacles here, I have notes about how it's a beekeeper with a white hat and veil dancing on a precarious perch, twin candles providing light and wreathing her in smoke, white swirling dress, bees bee coins in her hands. Sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. This is the Two of Wands with a bear emerging from hibernation. And I have here just a scribbled little butterfly that is a mark on the bear's chest with this darker butterfly, sort of like a missing puzzle piece flying off in the living actuality. This was a slightly more detailed sketch of the Two of Pentacles. I do that sometimes with the figures, the main focus points of the paintings, so that I have a little bit more elaboration. Although at this stage of sketching, everything is a very quickly done thumbnail. These are extremely scribbly. There's not really much concern for the details of the structure or references. I'm not really bothering with references. I'm more interested in the feel and the flow of the piece and how it moves across the page. In this, I was very much interested in how the flow and feel of the Three of Swords would be. Did I want this bird, this cormorant, to be standing on some kind of perch, some kind of stone or ground? I always see the cormorants in the nearby lake bird sanctuary near me. They're always standing out on the buoys in the water with their wings outstretched in this sort of cruciform pose. And so I wanted to capture that, but having the cormorant on the ground didn't really get that essence. So I tried one with flying. This is actually a different type of bird. I guess I played around with different bird species to see what I wanted, but in the end I really wanted to stick with the cormorant, which was my first impulse. Here we're getting into the fours. The Four of Cups had a couple of alternate possibilities. The first one was this with the four dragonflies in this meld of air and water, and this figure despondently in the boat leaning over with a cup spilling out. And here was an alternate version, whale shark with some mermaids. I think I moved away from this as the final idea. I used the first one instead because I felt like the cups were too secondary to this glorious whale shark. Whale shark made its way into another piece later on. Here was a third attempt and a fourth attempt. Oh, no, this is the fifth. This is the Five of Cups. Actually, that's what that one turned out to be instead. I moved the whale shark into the Five of Cups. And here is the Four of Wands, which was a tree, and the four wands you could see are these posts that are aligned along the edges of the tree. The Four of Pentacles. The Four of Pentacles in the Shadowscapes Tarot was also a dragon curled around his treasure, and I just really liked that image. And so this is one of the pieces where I stuck with the same imagery that I used for the Shadowscapes Tarot. Most of the deck I tried to steer away from reusing the same symbols and the same exact imagery because I want this to be different, and most of my experience now was coloring this in a very different way. But there were just a few of the cards that stuck to the old symbolism that I had. This one was really fun. This is the Five of Wands, which features a number of squirrels all squabbling for an acorn. This over here is actually an acorn. I don't know if you could tell that. And these are squirrels. They got 1, 2, 3, a little mouse over here. You can tell that because he's got a squiggly tail. That's the only indication that anyone would be able to know that that is a mouse. And a magpie here is joining the fray, and up above, the shadow of a hawk looming over these combatants who are unaware of their imminent danger. The Six of Cups. This one features this child scampering across the surface of the water and dragonflies, which are completely melded with the underwater realm with starfish. And I wanted to eventually have a castle under here as well. You can see like crown and jewelry and just treasure trove of wonders down below under the surface of the water. One of the things I like about working on the minor arcana is that the pieces don't have to be quite so iconic as they do for the majors, and so you can explore a lot of subtler, quieter moments and ideas and things, as well as compositions. For example, with the Six of Pentacles, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I did was to not limit myself to a certain scale and to kind of zoom in and out of pieces so that some were really close up. For example, these bees are extremely large and they're a different scale than a human size scale. And I liked having that freedom for the pieces in this minor arcana. Here I have the Seven of Wands, which I decided to do as a mother wolf with her two cubs tucked in behind her legs there, hiding from these shadow wolves and smoke creatures. The Eight of Cups. I also enjoyed the chance with the minor arcana to explore all of the types of images and imagery that I love to create. I love painting dragonflies. I love doing the delicate textures of their wings and the veins and the beautiful mosaic quality of them. And I wanted to be able to find ways to insert that into this deck in as many places as possible because it's something that I love to paint. And that was something that I wanted to retain throughout this deck, was this sense of joy in what I draw, and to make every single one of these pieces something that fit into my artistic worldview. Not only do they address the subject and the meaning of the cards, they address it in a way that is cohesive with my vocabulary of art and what I have built up over these years. Here's the Ten of Swords, which was a struggle piece for me in the Shadowscapes Tarot. It was not so much of a struggle here as I felt this piece almost immediately when I got to 10, and I wanted to have the same cormorants that you remember from the Three of Swords. We had that back here with the cormorant being sort of the victim of the piece, speared and holding these swords, versus now the cormorants are the swords. They are the ones spearing this figure. And at first this is what I had in mind, but by the time I finished painting the piece, he had morphed into a fish instead. And this was the fish instead that I decided to use for the piece. And you can see this hook is just over there as well. And the fish is just kind of oblivious to all these dangers and ways to die. The poor fish. And this, of course, is the 10 of coins or 10 of pentacles, the culmination of the pentacle suite, pentacle suit. And I wanted to have this rich honeycomb bit over here and the bee rising above it. Again, this is really an opportunity and a chance for me to explore the imagery in the language of art that I have crafted and created for myself over the years. Now here we have some of the notes as I started to move into the court cards. And I wasn't sure how I would approach those figures. I did want to have them all being human figures, and I wasn't sure if I would stick with the standard names of the page, the knight, the queen, the king. And so some of the ideas that I ran through, for example, were for the page I had nymph, child, youth, dreamer. For the knight, seeker, the knight, explorer, quester, and the creator is artist, visionary, sibyl, seer, guardian, keeper, sage, mystic, architect, shaper. So I played with all of these ideas and ran them by a few people to see what resonated and what worked and what didn't. And in the end, I actually ended up maintaining the page, knight, queen, king, but working through these ideas in my sketchbook was extremely helpful because it gave me more of a sense of how I wanted to dive into those and what they were going to represent for me. Let's move on to this secondary sketchbook now. And just like in the first one, when I started with the aces, I proceeded through the sets of images in a lateral order. So I did all the pages, all the knights, all the queens, and all the kings, rather than going through each suit one at a time. So this is the Page of Cups I have here, and some of the ideas that I had scribbled out were that her fingers touch the air and a ripple kind of spreads out through the reality of the piece, and it is the recognition that she can spark beginnings. These ripples extend and shatter the dragonfly-like patterns. Each page dreamer is touching and shifting the fabric of reality in the plane of the viewer. So that was something I wanted to keep as a consistent thing throughout the pages. So here's the Page of Pentacles and the Page of Swords and the Page of Wands. And then as I move to the Knights, for the Knights, I wanted them each to be riding on a mythical beast. And so for the Knight of Coins, I had the dragon turtle, which is a mythical Chinese creature of fortune and wealth. And the Seeker or Knight of Swords is riding on a hippogriff type being, swift and slicing through the air along with all those other bird companions. For the Seeker of Cups, I had this sea dragon, the Seeker of Wands. And initially I had it as a dragon, but it was a little bit too similar to the cups. And so I decided that it needed some more exploration to determine what their mount was going to be. And instead it turned into this Kiran type creature, which is another Chinese mythical creature. I draw from a lot of Asian Chinese mythology in a lot of my symbols and the choices that I make for the creatures and the clothing and the overall aesthetic of both this deck and the Shadowscapes. Now the Queens, this is the Queen of Cups. And she was a favorite of mine in the Shadowscapes, so it was a little bit of a challenge to create her again in a way that spoke to me as much as the old one did. Here is the Queen of Coins. Some of the notes that I had for her is that she is barefoot and the tangled earth is sort of with her and touching her, and you know, between her toes. Her mantle is like a giant spread of flower petals, and her embroidered gown, jewelry, and layered flower petals make up her petticoat, and the bees are busy buzzing around her. And one of the things that I started to see as I worked on these sketches of the queens is that for consistency of the queens, what I wanted, because they are an inward-seeking manifestation of the suits. So for the cups, it's the inward seeking of intuition. For the pentacles, it's the inner seeking of material place in the world. And so to represent that, I started having the creatures that surround them, and in the case of the swords, that would be birds, all of those sort of pointing inwards at the queens. So they're all coming at the queens. The butterflies are also inward seeking for the Queen of Wands, as opposed to the kings, which are more of the outward manifestation of these suits. And so for them, their creature companions are moving away or moving alongside them. This was the King of Swords. Initial sketch for the King of Swords was there, and this is what I eventually ended up using. The King of Pentacles and Coins. And you can see again, he has a feline creature. I had not yet decided what type of feline creature. What I eventually settled on was a tiger. And the King of Cups. Now I think the rest of this, actually, the King of Pentacles took on a different identity with this piece. He experienced some changes. Initially, I had this as the King of Pentacles, and then he became this. I'm sorry, I'm very, very confused. This was actually the King of Wands. No wonder he looked so completely different. Yes, this is the King of Wands. This is the King of Cups and the King of Pentacles, or coins. And then next here, I had some ideas for the major arcana, but I think I'm going to save that for my next sketchbook run through with you, because I don't have any of these paintings yet. I have a lot of these sketched ideas for the majors, but they have not yet come to fruition in their final painted form. And so I'd like to be able to share with you kind of the initial beginnings with the sketches and what they turn into. I enjoy that mode of doing these sketchbook walkthrough videos. So here's a little sneak peek of some of these major pieces, but we're going to go more into depth with them once I start to work on the major cards. All right, thanks for joining me today, looking through my sketchbooks. I hope you enjoyed that journey.